The council chamber was massive, built to accommodate 12 different alien species, each with their own strange requirements. Some breathed methane, others preferred extreme cold, and a few existed partly in dimensions humans couldn't even see properly. The air shimmered with translation fields, turning every word into something each species could understand. In the center of this grand room sat the human delegation, looking very small and very alone. Captain Ji-Woo Kim stood at the speaking platform, his hands clasped behind his back in a relaxed military posture. He wore a simple gray uniform with minimal decorations, nothing fancy or impressive by alien standards. Next to him sat Dr. Hana Park, reviewing data on a transparent tablet, and Ambassador Yun Lee, whose weathered face showed decades of diplomatic service. They had come to request membership in the Galactic Council, something humans had dreamed about since first contact 50 years ago. The presentation had gone poorly from the start. Ji-Woo had explained humanity's achievements in space exploration, their colonies on dozens of worlds, their mastery of fusion technology, and their recent breakthrough in faster-than-light travel. Every point was met with barely concealed amusement from the alien representatives. Thalvor, the Saurian delegate, was the first to speak openly. He was a massive reptilian creature, covered in iridescent scales that shifted colors with his emotions. Currently, they showed patterns that the translation system interpreted as contempt. His voice rumbled through the chamber like distant thunder. 300 years of spacefaring history, Thalvor said, letting each word drip with mockery. My species had colonized 100 systems before you humans even discovered fire. You use fusion drives? How quaint. We mastered dimensional folding millennia ago. Physical ships that must travel through normal space are tools for primitive civilizations. Several other delegates made sounds that the translator rendered as laughter. Quixen, representing the Hive Collective, clicked and chittered in rapid succession. The insectoid creature's thousands of compound eyes seemed to study the humans with scientific curiosity, like examining bacteria under a microscope. The collective has analyzed human technology extensively, Quixen said, speaking with the unified voice of a billion connected minds. Your solutions lack elegance. You use brute force where finesse would suffice. Your ships are heavy, your systems redundant beyond reason, your methods inefficient. You build everything 3 times stronger than necessary, wasting resources that could be optimized. Dr. Hana Park's jaw tightened slightly, but she said nothing. Ji-Woo remained perfectly still, that slight smile never leaving his face. Ambassador Yun Lee had seen this expression before, usually right before Ji-Woo did something unexpected. Another delegate spoke up, a floating crystalline being named Sorvel. The Council has standards for membership. We do not simply accept species because they learned to move between stars. A child can learn to walk, but that does not make them ready to run. You must demonstrate mastery of something truly advanced, something that pushes the boundaries of what is possible. Show us exotic matter manipulation, demanded a delegate from the Voidwalkers, creatures that existed partially outside normal spacetime. Or consciousness transfer technology, added another, a being of pure energy contained in a magnetic field. Surely you have mastered planet-scale engineering, asked Thalvor, his scales shifting to colors that suggested he already knew the answer. The minimum requirement for council consideration is demonstration of civilization-level capability. Where are your ringworlds? Your Dyson spheres? Your stellar engines? The chamber filled with various sounds of agreement. The translation fields worked overtime, converting chittering, roaring, singing, and mathematical proofs into concepts every species could understand. The overall message was clear: humans were not ready. Humans were children playing with toys while adults did real work. Ambassador Yun Lee stood slowly, his joints protesting the movement after sitting for 3 hours. He had represented humanity in first contact situations for 20 years, and he was tired. Tired of the condescension, tired of being treated like a curiosity, tired of having to prove that humans deserved basic respect. The Council's position is clear, Yun Lee said calmly. You believe humanity has not demonstrated sufficient advancement for membership. You find our technology primitive and our methods crude? Precisely, Thalvor agreed, sounding pleased that the humans finally understood. Perhaps in another 1,000 years, when you have matured as a species, we can revisit this discussion. There is no shame in being young, Every civilization must crawl before they walk. Jiwoo finally moved, taking a single step forward. The motion drew every eye in the chamber. He had been so still for so long that the movement seemed significant. Ambassador Yun-Li, Jiwoo said formally, though everyone in the room could hear him. Permission to make an alternative proposal? Yun-Li nodded, and something like anticipation flickered in his tired eyes. Jiwoo turned to face the assembled council. You have made your requirements clear. You wish to see proof of advancement beyond conventional technology. You want evidence of civilization-scale engineering capability. You believe humanity cannot provide this. Correct, Quixon said. Your presentation contained nothing that met minimum council standards. Your achievements, while admirable for such a young species, are simply not sufficient. Then we would like to request a demonstration, Jiwoo said simply. Grant us 1 solar cycle, 7 of your standard days. Meet us at coordinates we will provide, at the edge of your currently mapped space. See for yourselves what humanity has built. The chamber erupted in various forms of laughter and disbelief. Thalavor's scales flashed through a rainbow of colors indicating amusement. You expect us to travel for a week to see what? A large space station? An asteroid mining operation? We have seen such things 1,000,000 times before. Perhaps they have built a small ring segment, suggested another delegate, clearly joking. A tiny practice ring around a moon? Dr. Hannah Park allowed herself a small smile, matching Jiwoo's expression. She had worked on the project for 15 years and she had been waiting for this moment. Come and see, Jiwoo repeated. If you are not impressed, we will withdraw our application for membership and not request consideration again for a full century. We will accept our place as a young species that is not yet ready. This caught their attention. A century was a serious commitment even by alien standards. Quixon's billion minds consulted with each other in microseconds. And if we are impressed? Asked the Arbiter Velkos, an ancient being who rarely spoke. His crystalline form pulsed with soft light. Then we discuss membership terms, Ambassador Yun-Li said. Fair terms. Equal terms. Thalavor laughed again, a sound like rocks grinding together. Equal terms? You overestimate severely. But very well, humans. We accept your proposal. It will be entertaining if nothing else. Transmit your coordinates. The council will attend your demonstration. We look forward to whatever little surprise you have prepared. Jiwoo bowed slightly, a gesture of respect that was probably wasted on most species present. Thank you. You will not regret this journey. I promise you. What you see will change your understanding of what humans can achieve. As the session ended and the delegates began departing to their various ships, Thalavor approached Ambassador Yun-Li privately. His scales had settled into neutral colors. I hope for your sake that you have something genuinely impressive, the Saurian said quietly. You have made a bold claim. If you fail to deliver, humanity will be a laughingstock for generations. Other species will remember this moment. Are you certain you wish to take this risk? Yun-Li met the alien's gaze without flinching. Captain Kim does not make promises he cannot keep. Neither do I. Come to the coordinates. You will understand everything. Thalavor studied the human for a long moment, then departed without another word. As his massive form disappeared through the chamber doors, Dr. Hannah Park joined Yun-Li and Jiwoo. They have no idea, she said softly, excitement clear in her voice despite her attempt at calm professionalism. No, Jiwoo agreed, his smile finally becoming a genuine grin. They really don't. This is going to be satisfying. The alien fleet assembled at the designated jumping point 3 days later. 12 massive flagships, each representing their species' finest engineering, hung in space like jewels against the darkness. Some were biological, grown rather than built. Others were geometric impossibilities that hurt human eyes to look at directly. A few phased in and out of visible reality, existing partially in other dimensions. Together, they represented the greatest collection of advanced technology in known space. The human escort vessel looked pathetically small by comparison. The Resilience was a conventional military frigate, only 200 meters long, powered by fusion cores and magnetic field drives. Captain Seung Park commanded her with quiet efficiency, his crew of 80 working in perfect coordination, despite having the galaxy's most important passengers watching their every move. On the bridge, engineer Minji Cho monitored the formation status, making sure all 12 alien vessels maintained proper spacing for the jump to faster-than-light speeds. She was young for her position, only 28, but she had earned her place through Pure talent and an almost supernatural ability to solve problems that made other engineers give up. All vessels report ready for jump, Minji announced, her fingers dancing across her console. Coordinates locked. The journey will take approximately 6 standard days at cruise speed. Acknowledged, Captain Sung Park said. He opened a channel to the alien fleet. This is Resilience Actual. Beginning jump sequence in 30 seconds. Please maintain formation and follow our lead. The destination coordinates require precise navigation through several dense stellar regions. Thalvor's voice came through the communication system from his flagship. Understood, human vessel. Though I must say 6 days is quite a journey. This had better be worth the time investment. It will be, Sung Park replied simply, then closed the channel. He glanced at Minji with a slight grin. They still have no idea. Should we tell them? Minji asked, barely containing her excitement. And spoil the surprise? Absolutely not. The fleet jumped together, space bending around them as they slipped into faster-than-light travel. The stars outside became streaks of light, then settled into the strange stillness of FTL space, where normal physics took a break and let exotic mathematics run the show. During the journey, the aliens had plenty of time to discuss humanity among themselves. On Thalvor's flagship, the Saurian commander met with several other delegates via quantum communication. The conversation was private, encrypted, but filled with uncertainty that Thalvor hated to admit. My science officers have been analyzing human technology since first contact, Thalvor said to the floating image of Quixon. The collective's assessment was accurate. They use brute force solutions. Everything is over-engineered, redundant, heavier than necessary. But there is something troubling about their confidence. The collective has reached the same conclusion, Quixon replied, speaking with its unified billion-mind voice. Captain Kim's behavior at the council suggests genuine belief in whatever they plan to show us. Humans are not known for elaborate deceptions. They tend toward uncomfortable honesty. Another delegate joined the conversation, a void walker named Krestik who existed partially outside normal space-time. We have observed human colonies extensively. They thrive in environments that would kill most species. They adapt to extreme conditions with remarkable speed. They solve problems through iteration and persistence rather than elegant theory. Persistence is not the same as advancement, Thalvor argued, but his scales flickered with uncertainty colors. My dominion has been stagnating for centuries. We rely on technology our ancestors developed, barely understanding how it works. We have forgotten how to truly innovate. What if the humans have not? The conversation continued for hours, revealing cracks in the aliens' confidence. Most council species had reached their technological peaks millennia ago. They maintained and refined ancient knowledge, but true breakthroughs were rare. They had learned to accept their limitations, to work within established boundaries. Humans had no such limitations yet. They were still in the explosive growth phase of development, where every generation brought new discoveries. It made them unpredictable, and the aliens were beginning to realize that unpredictability might be more valuable than they had assumed. On the Resilience, Minji Cho found herself chatting with several alien engineers via the open communication channel the fleet maintained. Despite the tensions at the council, working-level personnel tended to be more friendly and curious than their leaders. Your vessel is fascinating, said a Saurian engineer named Kolvex. The redundancy levels are extraordinary. You have backup systems for your backup systems. It seems wasteful, but I must admit your failure rates are remarkably low. Minji laughed. We have a saying, hope for the best, plan for the worst. If something can go wrong, it eventually will. So we make sure that when it does, we have 3 other ways to accomplish the same task. But the resource cost, protested a Hive collective engineer. Efficiency demands optimization. Efficiency is great until your optimized system fails and you have no backup, Minji replied cheerfully. We prefer reliability over efficiency. A slower system that works is better than a fast system that breaks. This philosophy seemed to genuinely puzzle the alien engineers. Their civilizations had spent millennia optimizing everything, removing redundancy in favor of elegant solutions. The human approach seemed primitive, yet their systems worked remarkably well. On day 4 of the journey, an incident occurred that proved Minji's point dramatically. One of the Saurian flagships, the Dominance, suddenly dropped out of FTL space, its exotic matter containment system failing. The ship reappeared in normal space, sending emergency signals across all channels. Captain Sung Park immediately ordered the Resilience to drop out and assist. The rest of the fleet followed, curious about how humans would handle an emergency involving technology they supposedly didn't understand. Minji studied the problem for exactly 4 minutes before announcing a solution. The exotic matter containment is destabilizing because of a cascade feedback loop in their primary and secondary systems. They need to completely shut down both systems simultaneously, vent the exotic matter safely, and restart from cold using their tertiary backup. It will take 6 hours, but it will work. Impossible, Colvex replied over the communication channel. The tertiary system was not designed for cold start initialization. The mathematical requirements are too complex. Then bypass the mathematical elegance and do it manually, Minji said, already working on a procedure. I am sending you a step-by-step process. It is not pretty, it is not elegant, but it will work. Trust me. The Saurian engineers were skeptical, but with their ship dead in space and no other options immediately available, they followed Minji's instructions. 6 hours and 42 minutes later, the Dominance successfully restarted its exotic matter containment system and returned to operational status. Thalivor sent a private message to Captain Sung Park. Your engineer saved my flagship. The Dominion acknowledges this debt. Her solution was crude but effective. I am beginning to understand that effectiveness may matter more than elegance. Engineer Cho is one of our best, Sung Park replied. But she would tell you that 1,000 human engineers would have found similar solutions. We teach practical problem-solving above theoretical perfection. After the incident, the atmosphere in the fleet changed subtly. The aliens were more curious, less dismissive. They began asking the Resilience crew questions about human methods, human thinking, human approaches to engineering problems. On day 6, as they approached the final coordinates, the alien sensors showed nothing unusual. Just empty space in an unmapped sector surrounding a standard G-type star. No artificial structures, no energy signatures. Nothing to indicate any special human achievement. Thalvor contacted the Resilience, his voice carrying a note of concern that might have been disappointment or might have been worry. Captain Park, we have arrived at your coordinates. Our sensors detect nothing but natural stellar phenomena. Have we made an error in navigation? No error, Sung Park replied calmly. You are exactly where you need to be. Please hold position and observe. Captain Kim, are you ready? On one of the alien vessels, Ji-Woo Kim had traveled as a passenger, remaining quiet for the entire journey. Now his voice came through the communication system, carrying that same slight smile the aliens had learned to recognize. All vessels maintain current position, Ji-Woo said. What you are about to see has been hidden from your sensors by technology we developed specifically for this purpose. We call it a light-bending shroud. It masks both visual and most other sensor signatures. We have had it active since before your species even knew humans existed. Impossible, Quixon said flatly. The collective's sensors can detect anything that exists in normal space-time. Can they detect something that bends light around itself so perfectly that your sensors see only what lies beyond it? Dr. Hana Park's voice joined the conversation. She had also traveled with the fleet, waiting for this moment. Your sensors are looking right at it. They just cannot see it. Initiating deactivation sequence, Ji-Woo announced. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to New Dawn. Space itself seemed to ripple and shimmer like heat waves rising from hot pavement. The stars seemed to bend and twist, light moving in ways that should not be possible according to conventional physics. The effect spread outward from a central point, growing larger and larger, encompassing more and more space, and then, all at once, the shroud dropped completely. What appeared before the stunned alien fleet was beyond anything they had expected, beyond anything their centuries of experience had prepared them for. The empty space around the G-type star was suddenly, impossibly, filled with structure, not just structure. Civilization. Thalvor's scales went completely white, a color that indicated total shock in Saurian biology. Quixon's billion minds fell silent simultaneously, something that had never happened in recorded collective history. Every alien vessel immediately went to full sensor analysis, trying to understand what their eyes and instruments were showing them. Captain Sung Park allowed himself a satisfied smile. Impressive, is it not? And this is just one of them. Would you like to come closer? The structure that appeared before the alien fleet defied every assumption they had made about human capability. It was not a single construct, but a vast network of interconnected platforms, habitats, industrial complexes, and defensive stations that formed a complete shell around the inner star system. The scale was staggering, the complexity overwhelming, the implications terrifying to species that had believed themselves superior. New Dawn stretched across millions of cubic kilometers of space, organized into distinct rings at various orbital distances from the central star. Each ring served different purposes, and even from a distance, the aliens could see the careful planning and engineering that had gone into every aspect of the design. The innermost ring consisted of massive solar collection arrays, thousands of panels and mirrors that captured the star's energy and converted it into power. But these were not simple flat panels. They were curved, articulated, intelligent structures that adjusted constantly to optimize collection efficiency. The power generated here fed the entire structure through transmission systems that glowed faintly in the visible spectrum. The second ring held the industrial sectors, enormous manufacturing platforms where raw materials were processed and transformed into finished goods, smelting facilities, fabrication plants, assembly stations, all connected by transportation tubes that carried materials and products between facilities. The aliens could see ships moving constantly between the platforms, a steady flow of commerce and construction that spoke of a fully functioning economy. The third ring contained the agricultural sections, massive rotating cylinders covered in transparent materials that revealed green spaces inside. These were farms, forests, gardens growing real plants under artificial gravity created by the cylinder rotation. Through high-powered scopes, the aliens could actually see trees, fields of crops, and what appeared to be lakes of real water. It was wildly inefficient compared to synthetic food production, yet it worked at a scale that suggested millions of tons of food production. The fourth and largest ring held the habitation sectors, thousands of interconnected modules where people actually lived. The design showed incredible variety, from elegant tower spires that caught and reflected sunlight, to practical rectangular blocks that maximized internal volume, to artistic curved structures that served no obvious purpose except aesthetics. This was not a sterile research station or military outpost. This was a city in space, a place where billions of humans had built homes and lives. The outermost ring consisted of defensive platforms, weapons arrays, and shield generators that protected the entire structure. Even a casual sensor scan revealed firepower that could devastate a fleet. Railgun batteries that could throw projectiles at relativistic speeds, missile clusters that could saturate entire sectors of space, laser arrays with overlapping fields of fire that left no approach vector undefended. It was military engineering taken to an almost paranoid extreme. Connecting all these rings were transport tubes, elevator shafts, docking facilities, and communication networks that formed a three-dimensional web of connectivity. Ships moved between rings in organized traffic patterns, following routes that had clearly been established through long practice. The whole structure hummed with activity, with life, with purpose. Dr. Hannah Park's voice came through the communication system, professional and proud. New Dawn, construction time 80 years. Current population 3 billion humans with capacity for 5 billion. Complete self-sufficiency through closed-loop ecology. Zero exotic matter utilized. Zero-dimensional manipulation required. Built entirely with conventional physics, fusion power, and human ingenuity. Director Jay Kwan's voice joined hers. He was an older man, weathered by decades of work, who had led the construction project from its beginning. We started building when I was 25 years old. I am 73 now. I have spent my entire adult life on this project, and I will spend the rest of my life maintaining and expanding it. This is not just engineering. This is legacy. Thalivor finally found his voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. The structural loads alone should collapse something this large. Our mathematicians calculated that conventional materials cannot support structures of this scale without exotic matter reinforcement. The energy requirements to maintain rotation for artificial gravity should drain entire power grids. How is this possible? By not trying to do it your way, Hannah Park replied simply. You calculated correctly for your methods, but humans approach problems differently. We do not build one massive structure and hope it stays together. We build thousands of smaller modules, each independently stable, each self-supporting, then connect them into a larger whole. If one module fails, the others compensate. The system is redundant at every level. Quixon's billion minds had been silent, processing the impossible data their sensors provided. Now the collective spoke. And for the first time in the aliens' experience with them, there was uncertainty in that unified voice. The inefficiency is extraordinary. The redundancy levels are wasteful beyond calculation. Yet the stability is absolute. Our projections suggest this structure could survive catastrophic damage to 30% of its components and continue functioning. This should not be possible with conventional engineering. That is the point, Captain Jiwoo said, his voice carrying quiet satisfaction. We designed it to survive everything we could imagine, and several things we could not. Humans plan for failure because failure is inevitable. We over-engineer because the alternative is unacceptable. You call it wasteful. We call it necessary. A delegate from the Voidwalkers' Krestik spoke with genuine confusion in their voice. The materials science required to build something this large with conventional matter is beyond our understanding. What alloys did you use? What manufacturing processes? We developed them ourselves over 40 years of research, Hana Park said. New metallurgical techniques, ceramic composites with strength-to-weight ratios that exceeded anything in our previous knowledge. We did not discover exotic matter shortcuts. We simply made normal matter stronger through patient, systematic research. Would you like the specifications? We are happy to share. This offer stunned the aliens into another moment of silence. Technology sharing was rare between council species, each guarding their advantages jealously. The humans were offering their breakthrough materials science freely, as if it cost them nothing to give away decades of research. There is more, Director Jaquan said, and something in his voice made every alien lean closer to their communication systems. New Dawn is not unique. We have built 6 more structures. 3 are complete and populated. 3 are currently under construction and will be finished within 20 years. 2 are in human-claimed star systems. 1 is mobile. Mobile? Thalvor repeated the word as if it made no sense. You have built a mobile city of this scale? Yes, Jaquan confirmed. It moves slowly, only 0.01 times light speed, but it can travel between star systems carrying its entire population and industrial base. We call it the Wanderer. It is currently in transit to a new system we have selected for colonization. Travel time 42 years. The implications crashed over the aliens like a wave. Humans had not just built one impressive structure, they had industrialized the process, turning megascale construction into something repeatable, something they could do multiple times, and they had made one mobile, transforming it from a fixed location into a traveling civilization. Why did you hide this from us? Asked the Arbiter Velkos, the ancient crystalline being who rarely spoke. Why keep such achievements secret? Because we needed to finish before you knew we had started, Ambassador Yun Li said, speaking for the first time since the reveal. If we had announced our intentions 80 years ago, when we were young and unknown, you would have tried to stop us. You would have called it impossible, wasteful, dangerous. You would have insisted we learn from your methods, use your technologies, follow your paths. We needed to prove it could be done our way before asking for your approval. This honesty was almost shocking in its bluntness. The humans had deliberately hidden their greatest achievement because they did not trust the council to support it. And given the mockery they had received at the council chambers, that lack of trust seemed entirely justified. Captain Jiwoo's voice carried a hint of challenge now. You asked us to demonstrate mastery of something advanced. You wanted civilization-scale engineering. You demanded proof that humans could contribute to the council rather than merely benefit from it. Well, here is your proof. We have built cities in space that house billions. We have created closed ecosystems that sustain themselves indefinitely. We have engineered structures that will outlast any of us, using nothing but conventional physics and determination. Is this sufficient for council membership, or do you require further demonstration? Thalvor's scales shifted through a dozen colors in rapid succession, indicating a mixture of emotions that the Saurian probably did not know how to process. Respect, fear, excitement, concern, all flickering across his skin in iridescent waves. It is more than sufficient, the Saurian said finally. It is humbling. My dominion has coasted on ancient technology for millennia, barely maintaining what our ancestors built. We have forgotten how to create something genuinely new. Yet here you are, a species we dismissed as primitive, showing us engineering that puts our achievements to shame. Not to shame, Jiwoo corrected gently. Your technologies are impressive in different ways. We are not competing. We are showing you what becomes possible when a civilization commits to building, rather than maintaining, to creating, rather than preserving. The tour vessels are ready, Hana Park announced. We have prepared accommodations for all council delegates. The complete tour will take 2 days, as there is much to see and understand. We will show you the agricultural rings, the residential sectors, the industrial platforms, and the defensive systems. You will meet ordinary citizens living their daily lives. You will see how we have created not just a structure but a functioning society in space, and you will understand why we built it this way. The alien delegates boarded the human transport ships in a daze, still trying to process what they had seen. The mockery from the council chambers seemed like a distant memory, something foolish and embarrassing that everyone wanted to forget. As Thalvor stepped onto his assigned transport, he looked out at New Dawn one more time, watching the lights glittering across its vast surface like stars captured and tamed. "We were wrong about you," he said quietly to the human pilot. "Completely wrong." The pilot, a young woman named Bora, smiled at him. "Yes, you were. But that is okay. You will understand us better soon. Welcome to New Dawn, Counselor. Welcome to humanity's future." The transport ships carried the alien delegates deeper into New Dawn's structure, and with each passing hour, their understanding of humanity shifted in fundamental ways. This was not just impressive engineering. This was a completely different philosophy of existence, a different way of thinking about civilization itself. Dr. Hana Park led the largest group, which included Thalvor and several other senior delegates. Their transport docked at one of the agricultural ring's main hubs, and the airlock opened to reveal something none of them had expected. The air that rushed in was not recycled and sterile. It smelled of earth, of growing plants, of life. "This is Agricultural Section 7, Hana explained as they walked through the docking area into the main cylinder. "It produces approximately 15 million tons of food annually, feeding roughly 20 million people in the adjacent residential sectors." The corridor opened into the cylinder interior, and the aliens stopped walking entirely, stunned by what they saw. Above them, or perhaps around them, since the cylinder's rotation created gravity on all inner surfaces, stretched farmland. Real dirt, real plants growing in organized rows, real water flowing through irrigation channels. The curvature of the cylinder meant they could look up and see farms continuing overhead in a gentle arc, until distance and haze obscured the details. "This is insane," Thalvor said, not as an insult but as a statement of genuine disbelief. "You are growing actual plants? Using actual soil? The resource cost alone is incomprehensible." "It is actually quite efficient once established," Hana replied, leading them along a path between fields. "The soil is a closed system, recycling nutrients perfectly. The water cycles through collection, purification, and redistribution. The plants convert carbon dioxide to oxygen, helping maintain our atmosphere, and the psychological benefits of having real food, grown in real earth, are immeasurable." They encountered a farmer working in one of the fields, a middle-aged man named Dae Wong who looked up from his work and waved at the strange group of aliens following the scientist. He seemed completely unfazed by their presence, as if alien visitors were a normal part of his day. "How is the crop looking?" Hana asked him. "Very good this season," Dae Wong replied, wiping his hands on his pants. "The wheat should be ready for harvest in 3 weeks. Are these your guests from the council?" "They are," Hana confirmed. "They are trying to understand how we built all this." Dae Wong laughed, a genuine sound of amusement. "Built it? We are still building it. My grandfather worked these same fields when I was a child. My children work them now with me. My grandchildren will work them after I am gone. This is not just a structure. This is our home." Quicksand, experiencing the cylinder through a specialized environment suit, spoke through their translation device. "The collective does not understand. Why use such inefficient methods? Synthetic food production would require 1/10 the space and resources." "Because this is not just about efficiency," Dae Wong replied, gesturing at the fields around them. "This is about living. When my children eat bread, they know it came from wheat I planted, tended, and harvested. They understand where food comes from. They value it. They connect to it. Your synthetic production may be efficient, but it does not feed the soul." This answer seemed to genuinely confuse the Hive collective. Their billion minds conferred for several seconds before Kixon spoke again. "The collective is beginning to understand that humans optimize for factors we do not include in our calculations. psychological satisfaction, cultural continuity, emotional connection to work. These variables are difficult to quantify. Exactly, Hannah said. We could build a more efficient structure, but we chose to build a better one. Better for living, not just for existing. The tour continued through residential sectors, and here the aliens saw even more evidence of human philosophy in action. The habitats were not uniform pods optimized for space efficiency. They were neighborhoods, each with its own character and design. Some sections had been built in architectural styles from Earth's various cultures. Others showed experimental designs that mixed tradition with innovation. They visited a residential block where families lived in multi-room apartments, with windows that looked out at the stars or inward at the cylinder's central axis. Children played in parks that featured real grass, real trees, and playgrounds built from materials that could have been used for more practical purposes. Schools taught students not just technical skills, but art, music, history, and philosophy. You waste so much space on non-essential functions, observed Krestik, the Voidwalker delegate, though the word waste seemed less judgmental than genuinely puzzled. We do not consider it waste, Captain Sungpark said. He had joined this part of the tour, wanting to see the delegates' reactions personally. Humans need beauty. We need community. We need purpose beyond mere survival. A structure that only provides life support and work areas would drive people insane within a generation. We build for human needs, all of them, not just the biological ones. They met a teacher named Sujin who taught history to children in one of the schools. She explained her curriculum enthusiastically, describing how she taught students about Earth, about the early space colonies, about the struggles and triumphs that led to New Dawn's construction. These children were born here, Sujin said, gesturing at her classroom. They have never seen Earth. To them, this structure is not an engineering marvel. It is simply home. My job is to help them understand the effort and sacrifice that created their home, so they will maintain and improve it for their own children. Intergenerational thinking, Thalavor said, understanding dawning in his expression. You are not just building for yourselves. You are building for people who do not exist yet, who will not be born for decades or centuries. Yes, Sujin confirmed. Everything we do here is designed to last. We are not creating a temporary station. We are creating a permanent civilization that will outlive all of us. The industrial sector tour proved equally enlightening. Chief Engineer Sora Yang led this group personally, taking them through manufacturing facilities that produced everything from basic components to complex systems. Notice the redundancy, Sora explained as they walked through a fabrication plant. Every critical production line has at least 3 backup systems. Every power supply has multiple sources. Every computer system has manual override controls. We assume that things will break and we plan accordingly. She showed them the materials science laboratories where new alloys were developed and tested. The breakthrough that made New Dawn possible was not a single invention, but thousands of small improvements, each adding marginal gains in strength, durability, and efficiency. We did not make a miracle material, Sora said, holding up a sample of one of their structural alloys. We made normal materials slightly better, then used them intelligently. This alloy is only 12% stronger than what we had 50 years ago, but 12% across millions of tons of structure adds up to enormous capability. The aliens examined the materials with fascination, running their own scans and analyses. The mathematics checked out. There was no exotic matter, no dimensional folding, no quantum tricks. Just patient, methodical improvement of conventional materials through systematic research. Your approach is so incremental, Quixen observed. The collective would have attempted breakthrough innovations, revolutionary changes. You seem to prefer evolution over revolution. Revolution is exciting but risky, Sora replied. Evolution is slow but reliable. We chose reliability because we were building something that billions of people would depend on for survival. Exciting breakthroughs can fail spectacularly. Incremental improvements have already proven themselves before we scale them up. The defense system tour was led by Captain Jiwoo himself, and it revealed the almost paranoid level of preparation that humanity had built into New Dawn. The weapons platforms were numerous and overlapping, creating fields of fire that could engage threats from any direction simultaneously. We designed the defensive systems assuming we would face enemies with technology superior to ours, Jiwoo explained as they toured one of the larger weapons platforms. We cannot rely on having better weapons, so we rely on having more of them. Quantity has a quality all its own. But the costs, Thalvor protested. The resources devoted to defense could have been used for expansion, for improving living conditions, for research. The resources devoted to defense ensure that we have time to do those other things, Jiwoo countered. An undefended paradise is just a target. A well-defended home can last forever. We chose to invest in security because without it, nothing else matters. The aliens toured the central coordination facilities, where thousands of engineers and administrators managed New Dawn systems. They saw the fusion reactors that powered everything, redundant and overbuilt to absurd degrees. They visited the water recycling plants that achieved near-perfect efficiency. They examined the air processing systems that maintained perfect atmospheric balance across billions of cubic meters of habitable space. Every system they saw reinforced the same lesson. Humans had not made revolutionary breakthroughs. They had simply applied engineering principles with extraordinary thoroughness, backed by patience and persistence that spanned generations. 29. The second day of the tour, as the delegates gathered for a meal with New Dawn's residents, Thalvor found himself sitting next to Dae Wong, the farmer they had met earlier. The Saurian had spent the past day thinking deeply about everything he had seen. I must apologize, Thalvor said formally. At the council chambers, I dismissed your species as primitive. I was wrong. I was looking for the wrong things. Dae Wong smiled and offered the alien some bread he had baked himself. You were looking for magic. We do not have magic. We have work, time, and stubbornness. But those things applied correctly can achieve the impossible. Your species has reminded us of something we forgot, Thalvor admitted. We reached our peak millennia ago and stopped climbing. We maintained instead of building. We preserved instead of creating. We became comfortable with our limitations. You have shown us that limitations are meant to be pushed, not accepted. Around the table, other aliens were having similar conversations with human residents. The barriers of species and culture were breaking down as they realized that despite all their differences, there was something universal about the human approach. Build for the future. Plan for failure. Value community. Never stop improving. As the meal concluded, Dr. Hannah Park stood to address the assembled group. Tomorrow we return to the council chambers. You will vote on humanity's membership application. Whatever you decide, we hope this experience has been valuable. We have learned much from observing your civilizations. We hope you have learned something from observing ours. Quixon's billion minds spoke as one. We have learned that there are many paths to advancement, that efficiency is not the only measure of success, that sometimes the slow way is the better way. The collective votes yes to human membership. It is time humans joined the council as full equals. Other delegates murmured agreement, and Thalvor's scales shifted to colors indicating deep respect. The vote seemed almost certain now. But there were still details to discuss, terms to negotiate, and futures to plan together. The council chambers felt different when the delegates reconvened 1 week after their tour of New Dawn. The casual arrogance was gone, replaced by a thoughtful silence that spoke volumes about how much had changed in such a short time. The aliens had arrived expecting to see a modest achievement, and instead witnessed engineering that challenged everything they thought they knew about human capability. The session began with formal protocols, ancient rituals that predated most species' recorded history. The Arbiter Velkos, the crystalline being whose lifespan measured in tens of thousands of years, opened the proceedings with words that carried weight earned through millennia of observation. We gather to consider humanity's application for council membership, Velkos said, his crystalline structure pulsing with soft light. This is not a decision made lightly. The council has existed for 17,000 years. In that time, we have accepted 43 species into our ranks. Each brought unique capabilities and perspectives that enriched our collective knowledge. Today we consider the 44th. Thalvor was the first delegate to stand and address the chamber. His scales displayed colors that indicated deep respect and humility, emotions the Saurian had rarely shown in his centuries of service. I must begin with an apology, Thalvor said, his voice carrying none of its previous condescension. At our last gathering, I mocked humanity's achievements. I called them primitive. I dismissed their methods as crude and inefficient. I was wrong on every count. The Saurian Dominion formally apologizes to the human delegation for our disrespect and our failure to recognize true innovation when it was presented to us. Several other delegates made similar statements, each acknowledging their own biases and mistakes. The tone was completely different from their first meeting, transformed by 2 days of walking through New Dawn and seeing humanity's achievements firsthand. Quixon spoke for the Hive Collective, their billion minds unified in agreement. The collective has analyzed human methodology extensively. We have concluded that humans possess a unique approach to problem solving that complements existing council capabilities. They optimize for different variables than we do, creating solutions that would not occur to species trained in our traditional methods. This diversity of thinking is valuable and should be welcomed. The vote proceeded delegate by delegate, each species casting their formal decision. The result was unanimous in a way that shocked even the human delegation. Not a single abstention, not a single dissenting voice. All 12 council species voted to accept humanity as the 44th member. Ambassador Yun Li stood to formally accept on humanity's behalf, but his expression was serious rather than celebratory. He had been a diplomat long enough to know that winning was only the beginning of negotiation, not the end. The human delegation thanks the council for this honor, Yun Li said carefully. However, before we formally accept membership, we must discuss the terms under which humanity will join. We have conditions that must be met. This statement caused a ripple of surprise through the chamber. Species typically accepted council membership eagerly, grateful for the opportunity to join such an ancient and prestigious organization. Demanding conditions was almost unheard of, particularly from a species so new to galactic civilization. Conditions? Thalvor repeated, his scales flickering with confusion. What conditions could you possibly require? Council membership grants access to technologies, trade networks, and mutual defense agreements that most species spend centuries working toward. That is precisely the issue, Yun Li replied calmly. We appreciate the membership offer. But we have learned something important over the past century of interaction with your civilizations. We do not need council membership the way we once thought we did. He gestured toward the holographic display that showed images of New Dawn and the other human megastructures. We have proven we can build, grow, and thrive on our own. We can create habitats that house billions without requiring exotic technologies or ancient artifacts. We can develop new materials and methods through patient research. We can solve problems that your species considered impossible, using nothing but conventional physics and human stubbornness. We can stand alone if necessary. Then why seek membership at all? Asked Krestik, the Voidwalker delegate, genuinely puzzled. Because cooperation is better than isolation, Captain Jiwoo answered, standing beside the ambassador. We want to join the council, but as true equals, not as junior partners grateful for scraps of knowledge. We want fair exchange, not charity. We want partnership, not subordination, Ambassador Yun Li continued, outlining humanity's specific conditions. First, we require full technology sharing to operate in both directions. Humans will share our materials, science, structural engineering, techniques, and redundancy planning methods freely with all council species. In return, we want complete access to your exotic matter manipulation, dimensional folding, and other advanced technologies. No secrets, no restricted knowledge, no graduated access based on seniority. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. Technology sharing between council species was typically limited, carefully controlled, and often one-directional, with older species maintaining advantages over newer members. Second, Yun Li continued, we require fair trade agreements negotiated as equals. Human resources, manufactured goods, and services will be valued appropriately, not treated as inferior simply because we are new. We will compete in open markets based on quality and price, not species preference. Third, humanity reserves the right to maintain independent foreign policy. We will honor mutual defense agreements and participate in council deliberations, but we will not be bound by decisions that conflict with human interests. If the Council becomes a hindrance rather than a partnership, we reserve the right to withdraw our membership without penalty. The chamber erupted in debate. These were unprecedented demands, terms that challenged the traditional hierarchy where older species held natural authority over younger ones. Several delegates argued vehemently against accepting such conditions, while others defended humanity's right to negotiate their own terms. Thalvor surprised everyone by standing in support of the human position. They have earned these terms, the Saurian declared firmly. Look at what they built without our help, without our guidance, without our permission. They developed breakthrough materials science independently. They engineered megastructures that surpass anything we have created in millennia. They solved problems we considered unsolvable using methods we had not considered. They deserve equal treatment because they have demonstrated equal capability. But the precedent, protested another delegate. If we accept these terms for humanity, every future applicant will demand similar treatment. Good, Thalvor replied bluntly. Perhaps we need to rethink how we evaluate capability. Age does not automatically equal superiority. The Council has become comfortable with our established hierarchy. Humanity is challenging us to do better, to be better. I support their conditions completely. Quixon's collective added their support. The human approach to redundancy and failure planning could revolutionize collective habitat design. Our structures have suffered catastrophic failures that killed billions because we optimized for efficiency over resilience. Human engineering principles could prevent such disasters in the future. The knowledge exchange they propose benefits us as much as them. The collective supports all human conditions. The debate continued for hours, with delegates arguing practical implications, philosophical concerns, and political consequences. But gradually, consensus emerged. The humans had proven themselves not just capable but exceptional. They had demonstrated innovation that the Council desperately needed. Their conditions were fair, perhaps even generous given what they were offering in return. The Arbiter Velkos called for a final vote on accepting humanity's conditional membership. The result was not unanimous this time, with 3 abstentions, but the majority was overwhelming. The Council agreed to humanity's terms, establishing a new precedent for equal partnership rather than hierarchical membership. As the formal agreements were signed and sealed through methods both legal and ceremonial, Ambassador Yun Li felt a weight lift from his shoulders that he had carried for 20 years. Humanity had not just joined the Galactic Council. They had joined as equals on their own terms, with their dignity intact. After the official proceedings concluded, small groups gathered informally to discuss implications and next steps. Dr. Hana Park found herself in conversation with several alien scientists who were already planning collaborative research projects combining human and alien methodologies. We want to understand your material science completely, said a Saurian researcher. Our exotic matter systems are powerful but fragile. Your conventional materials are weaker individually but create more stable structures. Perhaps combining both approaches could produce something superior to either alone. We would welcome that collaboration, Hana replied enthusiastically. And we are very interested in your dimensional folding mathematics. We have theoretical frameworks but lack practical implementation knowledge. Working together, we might achieve breakthroughs neither species could manage alone. Captain Jiwoo stood with Thalvor on an observation deck overlooking the Council Station's impressive view of nearby nebulae. The Saurian had become almost friendly over the past week, his initial hostility replaced by genuine respect. Your species will change the Council, Thalvor said quietly. Already I hear delegates discussing new projects, reconsidering old assumptions, questioning methods they have used for millennia. You have reminded us that stagnation is a choice, not an inevitability. We did not come here to change you, Jiwoo replied. We came to join you, but if our presence inspires innovation, that benefits everyone. What will humanity do now? Thalvor asked. You have access to technologies that could revolutionize your megastructure projects. Will you rebuild New Dawn with exotic matter and dimensional manipulation? Jiwoo smiled. No. We will incorporate new technologies carefully, test them thoroughly, and integrate them only where they improve upon our existing methods. We will not abandon conventional engineering just because something more exotic becomes available, but we will experiment, adapt, and evolve. That is what humans do. That evening, Captain Ji-woo, Ambassador Yun Lee, and Dr. Hana Park met privately in their quarters aboard the human diplomatic vessel. They were exhausted but satisfied, knowing they had achieved something that would echo through generations. The next project has already been approved, Hana said, pulling up holographic blueprints that filled the room with glowing lines and mathematical annotations. We are calling it Horizon. It will be 10 times larger than New Dawn, mobile like Wanderer, and incorporate some of the exotic technologies we will learn from our new council partners. Construction begins in 6 months. Will it work? Yun Li asked, though he already knew the answer. It will take 30 years to build, Hana replied. My grandchildren will probably finish it, not me. But yes, it will work. We will make it work. That is what we do. Ji-woo looked at the blueprints with satisfaction. Humans were already planning the next impossible achievement, not content to rest on their current success. It was this drive, this refusal to accept limitations that had brought them so far in such a short time. 30 years, Ji-woo said thoughtfully. By then, the other council species will have had time to learn our methods and share their own knowledge. Imagine what we could build together with combined expertise. Structures that blend human resilience with alien innovation, cities that exist partially in other dimensions for unlimited expansion, agricultural systems enhanced by exotic biology, defense networks that use both conventional and impossible weapons. The Council will never be the same, Yun Li observed. We have disrupted 17,000 years of tradition in a matter of weeks. Disruption is not always bad, Hana replied. Sometimes tradition needs to be challenged. Sometimes the old ways need new perspectives. And sometimes the youngest species in the room turns out to have the freshest ideas. They stood together in silence for a moment, looking at the blueprints that represented humanity's next great achievement. Outside the window, the council station gleamed against the darkness of space, a symbol of cooperation between species that had overcome their differences to work together. Humanity had joined that cooperation not as supplicants but as equals, bringing their own unique strengths to an ancient alliance. They had shown that innovation did not require exotic technologies or impossible physics. It required patience, persistence, and the willingness to do things differently than they had ever been done before. The aliens had mocked humans once, dismissing them as primitive and crude. But that mockery had turned to respect when New Dawn shimmered into view, revealing the truth that the aliens had missed. Humanity's strength was not in matching alien capabilities, but in exceeding them through different methods, different thinking, and different values. As Captain Ji-woo looked out at the stars, he thought about all the other human megastructures under construction, all the colonies expanding across claimed systems, all the research projects pushing boundaries in laboratories throughout human space. This was just the beginning. Humanity had proven what was possible. Now they would prove what came next. The impossible was simply what humans had not yet achieved. Give them time, resources, and motivation, and the impossible became inevitable. That was the lesson the Galactic Council had learned. That was the gift humanity brought to ancient civilizations that had forgotten how to dream. In the end, it was not about being better than the aliens. It was about being different in ways that mattered, offering perspectives and solutions that complemented existing knowledge rather than competing with it. Humanity had earned its place through demonstration rather than words, through achievement rather than potential, and they were just getting started.